You ready?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. We're here with Barry Hearn at Tower Hill, just announced the October 11th show at the O2. First of all, what a show, and Anthony Joshua a year on.
It's amazing, isn't it? You just turn around and blink, another year's gone. Great to see the level of the three main event fights, really, but also, I've got to say, I'm really interested in the undercard. There's a nice little thing bubbling with this light welterweight division. Some great kids in some very competitive fights, but I suppose for the mainstream fan, they're looking at, Lee Selby, final eliminator for the IBF title, doesn't get any bigger, and of course he's up against a 27-0, good world-class fighter from Australia. John Ryder, come back from the Billy Joe Saunders loss. His training camp, his trainers tell me he's ready to go, so he's going. He's got the tough fight, the guy that knocked out Buglioni, so it's a step up in class for John Ryder. Can he prove himself on the world stage? And then the big fella, frightening to think, if September the 13th in Manchester goes well, he's boxing for the WBC international title. That means he's qualified to fight for the world heavyweight title after 9 fights. I'm not suggesting he's going to be doing that, but the fact is he's earned his way there already. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, as this journey of Anthony Joshua unfolds, there's going to be a lot of people saying, I was there when he won his first belt, because it's going to be, it is, as the poster says, it's the moment of truth for these 3 fighters. And as we said, underneath, so many other domestic scraps to be sorted out in what's a really competitive light welterweight division.
And I mean, Anthony Joshua, how would you say his first year as a professional has been? How would you describe it? I mean, from starting off at the O2 to fighting at Wembley Stadium.
Well, I'm a little bit biased, and I've also got a little bit inside track because I see the kid quite a lot at my head office. He trains there sometimes, and obviously we talk, and I watched him. I can't describe how impressed I am with him. I don't want to put too much pressure on him. I think he's the best I've ever seen. And I'm talking about going back, including the likes of Tyson and Lennox Lewis and people like that. At this stage of his career, this is a unit. I mean, this is a proper unit. He's going to get better, which is scary. He's got so much power, so much natural ability, and a brain that says, I want to learn, and where he's come from, he's dealt with everything as we expected he would do that's been put in front of him. And we've been slightly edging it up. I think his next 2 fights, the German on September the 13th in Manchester, is another step up. And for the WBC International, another step up. It's scary to think there's actually, and I'm not the bravest promoter as you know, but there's not too many heavyweights in the world I wouldn't put him in with now. But commercially he's not ready, it's not physically. Physically he's ready, he wants, he'd like to get some rounds, but he hits so hard, who's going to give him rounds? I mean, that's the question. He can only do, he's not going to hold someone up and say, I've done 12 rounds, is he? If he gets a chance to take him out, and that right hand is like a sledgehammer. I mean, it reminds me a bit of Ernie Shavers. It's, and these jab, he's so difficult to hit. In short, I'm a fan, as you can see. I can't think of anything other than Anthony Joshua being a major global superstar in the next few years. So it starts for his first belt. The journey is underway.
And you mentioned there's not many heavyweights you wouldn't put him in against, and the other week he was out sparring with the Klitschko's. I mean, what was that like? What kind of experience could he get from that, being a young fighter going in against Klitschko?
You can't buy that sort of experience, it's not, it's sharing a ring with a man who's established himself as one of the great heavyweights of all time. Obviously he's also a proud athlete, Klitschko, so he's not going to get mugged off by a youngster, so he's going to give you some heavy-duty sparring. I see that Klitschko's withdrawn from his next fight, so perhaps Anthony gave him a bit of heavy-duty back, who knows? But that's the sort of fight where, realistically, in 15 months' time, is Anthony Joshua ready to go against Klitschko for the world heavyweight title? That's the way, that's the esteem we hold him in.
And of course, in the press conference, Eddie mentioned some of the other domestic heavyweights. I mean, could we likely see some of those next year? We're seeing some great domestic clashes, like you mentioned, the light welterweights here. We have Froch Groves, we've got Kell Brook, Amir Khan potentially going to happen.
I think there's some great fights out there. I think Anthony Joshua's going to be busy, so I'd rather see him in a lot of domestic fights if possible. But certainly thinking about, Fury and Chisora, winners and losers of that, are on the agenda, and I think, you know, if Fury wins, which I expect him to, although, sorry Derek, you know, you've still got a chance, it's up to you. A Fury Chisora fight, a Fury AJ fight in October next year would be absolutely huge. You're talking about you know, there's so many British fighters out there. We're looking at Sprott to, you know, build him up in December, maybe. You know, there's a few good fights, but there's not much on the world scene. Let's be perfectly honest. And, you know, in a way, all you can do is be the best that's out there. But there's one or two big fights that what you hope to do is the time you get ready for those big fights, you're established as a global star in your own right. Because this kid has more potential than any fighter I've ever seen.
And I mean, another heavyweight is part of the Sauerland promotion too. Matchroom seem to be doing quite a bit of work with David Price. Is that something we could possibly see?
David Price is another one, you know. I think it's Gary Cornish is the Scottish kid as well, you know. There's a few fights out there. Now, it depends whether they want it, whether they price themselves out, whether it's part of the laid out procedure that we have for Anthony as he learns his job. You know, there's always twists and tails in it. My main plan is, however, I'd like to see Anthony Joshua headlining in the first 6 months of next year on his own. So he's got to be in meaningful fights, and then once he gets to that stage, you've just got to push on. I mean, he's only 24, so he's a baby really, but I can't see anyone standing up to him. I mean, I just don't see anyone getting hit by this fella being around at the end of that round. You know, he's a concussive puncher, and he's developing. Actually, you can actually watch and see the improvement in him every fight. His feet have suddenly got better. You know, he sort of moves like a middleweight. You know, where did that come from? And I think the reason is, I think he sits there and thinks, I've got to work on this, I've got to work on that. Consummate pro. And you know, obviously a massive future if he keeps his feet on the ground.
And it was nice seeing that Sky documentary the other week as well, and seeing him going back to his home in Watford, and that was a really nice, I thought it was a really nice documentary.
Yeah, nice, and I think we've done one ourselves on for global distribution, because we're spreading the word of Anthony Joshua. You know, it's a commercial world, it's a tough world, you've got to maximise every asset you've got, and Anthony does, without doubt, comes across so well anyway. I think basically he's a nice bloke, just that he hits very hard.
And of course, a big night in America a couple of weeks ago. I was watching it, seeing you celebrating. I mean, what was that night like over in America when Kell Brook was announced and the new?
I just think that's why I'm in boxing, really. I mean, I've been in it for 30 odd years. You know, nights like that are what you do it for. You know, that I know how much it meant to Kell and his dad and his trainer and his camp, Eddie. You know, a little bit. I'm just pleased to be part of it, really. And when they say the words "and the new," I mean, I saw that fight as a total shutout. I didn't see Porter at all in the fight. Ringside, I think it's a different fight on TV, and I think you may get influenced by commentary. I thought Kell boxed Porter's ears off, and I thought Porter was very one-dimensional. There was no change of tactics when he wasn't working. He just swarmed forward with his head down, through flayed hooks. Nothing. You look at the end of the fight. You know, Sean Porter looks as if he's been run over by a truck, and Kell Brook had a little nick over his eye, not another mark on him. I could only score 2 really decent shots from Porter in the entire fight. I thought every clean shot came from Kell. So I had it 6 rounds, and I thought I was being a bit harsh on Kell to only give it to him by 6. But this kid's going to go a long way, because you know, sometimes we talk about fighters, you know, people like you are just as bad as everyone else. When's he going to fight this? When's he going to fight that? The fact that Kell Brook hadn't really been in a life and death struggle against a world-class, super world-class opponent really didn't matter. What mattered was he ready when he went in to deal with it? Could he go up to that level? And what he showed that night in Los Angeles was he's ready for that level. This is a very, very good technical fighter, as well as being a huge welterweight. So I think we're going to have some fun with Mr. Brook, and obviously I think that hopefully will involve, you know, Amir Khan, because there's a fight that the whole British fight fans want to see. It's a Wembley fight, it's another Froch Groves, and it's commercially right for both of them. I mean, I'm sorry to bring money into it, but it plays a big part in boxing. Where else are either of them going to earn anywhere near what that fight's going to generate? And the answer is nowhere. So I know Eddie's in discussions. December the 6th looks like Kell for homecoming. again, it'll have to be a tough fight because he's in that company now. And Amir's fighting the same night, so wouldn't it be great that night to announce we'll see you both at Wembley? That would be perfect, and I think it's what fight fans want. And our job is to give the fight fans and the television companies fights they want. And Eddie's job is to make sure that Dad gets a good seat.
Definitely. And in terms of another fighter, we've not seen him for a while in the ring after the show at Wembley, Carl Froch. What's happening there? Is he going to be fighting in Vegas? Is it going to be against James DeGale?
I don't know at the moment. I would think James DeGale is a big price favourite for that fight. It won't be this year. What people have to understand is that being a boxing promoter in today's world of television, pay-per-view, etc., is that it's a bit like running an airport, and we've got all these planes circling. Some of them are jumbo jets, some of them are charter flights, some of them are little private planes, and they have to land when the runway's clear. So we have to plan at least 9 months ahead to make sure that we secure the right international distribution which maximises the fighters' purses. There's a business behind, it's not just about boxing. So for Carl now, if December the 6th is Kell Brook in a massive fight, I would think end of February, sometime in March would be right for Carl. Who he fights will depend on Carl. He has 2 belts. James DeGale is mandatory. I like that fight. I think the British fans would like that fight. So maybe that's the one that happens. That's in Eddie's department, not mine. I'll just go there and say, well, I'd like to be there myself.
And if James hasn't been in the ring for a while, do you think we could see him out once before that fight against Carl potentially?
I think that will depend on James DeGale himself. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, what does he want to do? I mean, the fighters make the last call. We can't force anyone to fight, and they can't force us to do something we don't want. I think there's a certain view that I think James' profile can benefit by being built a bit bigger. He done himself no harm whatsoever in his last fight for the first time in front of 80,000 people. Great win on Sky. But I think we can build on that. Froch is already a global superstar in terms of boxing, so he doesn't need building. If James wants to go out before that fight, I think it's something that Eddie would obviously consider.
And Carl, on TV at the moment, not in a boxing ring, but on tumble. Have you watched any of that? If so, what have you made of Carl and his gymnastics?
Well, I think Carl Froch is an amazing man. You know, he's such a competitor. He wants to win everything. Whether I would have suggested going on it is unlikely, because I would have been thinking injuries and, you know, you're a professional fighter that's 37, coming up 38 years old. Time is against you, but you know he's enjoying it, and obviously his profile is being continually built. You know, he must be one of the favourites for Sports Personality of the Year on his achievements. So it's doing him no harm at all, and you know it's building up the bigger and bigger fights. But you know, Carl's only ever going to box twice a year. And I would think next year he'll be looking to do exactly that again.
And one final question. You were chairman for Leyton Orient for a number of years. This is the first time for a transfer window you've not been chairman of Leyton Orient. Is that a massive weight off your shoulders? Is it nice to be on this transfer deadline day and not having to worry about ins and outs?
Why do you think I'm here? I can't tell you how my life has changed for the better. I feel 10 years younger. I still support Leyton Orient, I still go to games, but I don't have the responsibility. And after 20 years, I was ready to divest myself of that. So I'm the happiest ex-chairman of a football club you're ever going to meet.
Oh, that's great, Barry. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.